In this video, we are going to be learning about AWS Lambda. AWS Lambda is a serverless compute service that allows us to run code without provisioning or managing servers. It executes code in response to events and automatically manages the computing resource when required, and we pay only for the compute time we consume. There are no extra charge linked to it. Some key features for AWS Lambda is that it's serverless. We don't require to manage any server. Those things are done by AWS itself. It's event driven. We can trigger Lambda functions from anywhere when we require to use the function, and we pay only what we use. If we use the function for 10 seconds, then we pay only for that 10 seconds, nothing more than that. Next comes scalability. Lambda automatically scales the function up or down depending upon the demand, ensuring high availability and performance. And we can also integrate AWS Lambda with services like S3, DynamoDB, API Gateway, and other AWS services very easily. Now let's get on some hands-on tutorial on how to use AWS Lambda. Now first you need to open your AWS console. Choose the region where you want to create your Lambda function. In my case, I'm keeping it in US West 1. From the search panel, just search for Lambda. Click on Lambda. You will get the same UI like this if you don't have any existing Lambda function. And as it is saying that we can write Lambda function in .NET, Java, Node.js, Python, Ruby, or any custom runtime. Let's create our own function. Now we have three options. Either we can write the full function from scratch by us, or we can use some blueprint. These are some of the example functions that are pre-written by AWS to make our job easier. If you need any of this pre-written function, then you can simply use them. And the third option is container image. If you are building some Docker images and you want to run those images inside AWS Lambda, in that case, you should be pushing this image inside your ECR repository. So inside your ECR repository, ECR is another place where you push your Docker repositories, and from there, we'll be browsing that image and keeping that image. So in this case, let's just write an Lambda function from scratch. Here you can choose any language. So in my case, I'm choosing Node.js runtime, and let's name this function as demo Lambda tutorial. Now in architecture, you need to choose it carefully. Like if you go by the pricing, then you will find that the ARM architectures are more cheaper than x86 architecture. But don't choose ARM architecture always, because most of the Node.js packages don't support ARM architecture. Now inside permission, you can either create a new Lambda function role with basic permission, or you can choose any existing role if you had any existing roles. This will just create a new IAM role, like as it's saying that it will create a demo Lambda tutorial role with the permission to upload logs to CloudWatch. CloudWatch is the place where we can get the logs if somebody sends any request to our Lambda function and what are the things that are happening. If we keep on adding console log, then it will keep logging those things inside our CloudWatch logs, and it's very useful for debugging. Let's keep this option. Now it comes about function URL. Like if we want to call the Lambda function directly, then we should enable this function URL. Now if I select AWS IAM Auth, only AWS IAM authenticated users will be able to invoke this Lambda function. But for this, let's keep it to none, because we want that everyone should be able to call our Lambda function. This policy will be added to our IAM role that is getting created, this one. So this policy will be automatically added. Now we need to choose whether we'll be invoking it in buffered mode or stream mode. So buffered mode is okay, because if you're returning a single response, then buffer mode is okay. But if you are returning a response in phrases, then we should be selecting response tree. Let's enable calls so that we can call it from anywhere. Now VPC, if you want to access private resources like your RDS database or any other EC2 instances, in that case you should be enabling VPC. Now if you want, you can enable code signing. Code signing basically ensure that the code has been signed by an approved source, nothing else. And if you want to encrypt the function by your own secure key, in that case you should use this AWS customer managed key. And for tags, you can just add some tags like lambda, true. So now let's create a function. Now our function has got created. Here we can either edit the code from here. Here we can test it directly. If we test this function, you'll find that it returns a response like hello from lambda. This is the sample code, just returning a response JSON with stringify hello from lambda, and it's calling the handler function. Now this configuration is written here, like it will call index.handler. If you think that you need to change the main function name, then you should do the modification here. Just click on edit and write the name of the function that you want to call. Now let's call this function. We can call this function directly, and you can see that we are getting the response hello from lambda from AWS, and we can monitor this because we have enabled CloudWatch logs, so we can view the log. Like here you can see that it has created the log, just the runtime and the duration, and the duration was only 10 milliseconds, and we were only built for 10 milliseconds, not anything more than that. So now, depending on our need, if we think that we need to increase the memory size, then we can also do that. If you think that we need to increase the timeout, like in most cases 3 seconds might be very low, in that case you can just make it to 10 seconds depending upon your need. Just save those changes and it will be updated. Now let's write some function by ourselves. Inside your Visual Studio Code, you can open any folder. Here I'm going to be using Node.js for coding. First, just open terminal. In this case, I'm using pnpm. Just use pnpm init. Here, just let me change it to type module. So we can use ES6 type module. Now we'll start writing the code. Since our file name was index, so here we'll make it as index.js. And then we'll create the function name as export const handler, and here we'll be passing the event that we are receiving from calling. Since we are making a function, when we call this function, it would return our IP address, our geolocation, and much more. So for doing this, we'll be requiring some kind of API. For API that we are going to use is going to be the IP2 location geolocation API. If you also want to follow the tutorial along, then you should visit ip2location.io, and from here just create a new account, or if you have any existing account then you can use it. From pricing, here you get 50k geolocation search per month, so it's free to use. You don't need any credit card or anything. You just sign up, you'll be getting an API key, and we'll be using that. Since we'll be dealing with environment variables, we'll not be statically creating the environment variable here. Instead, we'll write the environment variable directly in our Lambda function. Let's first wrap it with try catch so that it can handle exceptions. So after login with your IP2 location account, you'll get this API key. So if you just copy this and paste it here, you'll find that here is the API key, and if we just send a request, you'll find we are getting the information about our IP and the location. In this case, we cannot use this URL directly because it's publicly leaking our API key. So it's better to hide our API key. So we are going to be doing that thing only. We'll be using AWS Lambda for that. So first, here we'll be getting the client IP. We can get the client IP from event.requestcontext.http.source IP, and then we need to have a API key. For that, we are using process.env.api key. If API key is not found, then we'll return a JSON response with status code 500 that API key is not found. And now here we'll be writing the function where we'll call this API and get the IP geolocation data. Let's write that function. Function to get geo IP data. So here we'll be creating a function get geolocation data. We'll be passing the IP and the API key, and then we'll construct the URL. URL will be the IP2 api.ip2 location.2, and then our API key and the IP address that we are willing to search. Then we need to just send a GET request and we'll be getting the response. So you will just create a const variable, use await fetch the URL, and if response is not okay, in that case it just return a response that is not 200. In that case we'll just return HTTP status error, and then if we receive a correct response that is 200, we are going to be returning the JSON as it is. We need to call this get location data inside our handler. So here we need to get the geolocation of that IP. For that we need to call the get location data function. Let's create a const location data variable, and here we are calling get location data. Here we'll be getting the geolocation response or some error. Here we'll be returning the status code 200 and some headers, and then we'll just have the body as JSON stringify as JSON, and then we'll pass the body as JSON stringify. Client IP will be the IP that we're receiving, and the location data will be the location data that we're receiving from geolocation IP. That's all. Here we are using access control, allow, origin, everything, so that we can call this function from anywhere. And in case we are having any error, if we don't get the response correctly, it will throw an error, then it will get cached in this cached function. So here, first we'll console log the error so that it's viewable in our CloudWatch log. So here first we are going to be logging the error so that it can be viewed in our CloudWatch logs, and then we'll just return internal server error in json.stringify response. Now this is the function, and this is how you write Lambda function. To push the Lambda function, you need to copy all of the code including node modules, because there is no option to install the packages inside AWS Lambda directly. So just open the folder and here select all including your node modules because it's required. And now you need to just use any compression file to zip it. Here I'm using 7-zip. Just make sure that the archive format is zip, and now just click on zip. We have just zip all our code and it's around 4 MB. And now here we can just select upload form, and here we'll be using the zip file. You can also upload the zip file to Amazon S3, and from there you can upload here, or you can use the zip file option like this. Just open the folder, drag and drop like this, and just save it. It will be uploading your code. Now our code has been uploaded. So now you can see that it's written index.js. Now let's test this function. Now we are getting the error, that internal server error, because we have not yet added our API key. So we can do that inside our configuration environment variables, just create a new variable. Like we name the variable as API key, API underscore key. So we'll be using that API underscore key. And from here, we'll just copy our API key and paste it here. Save it. It will update the function. And now if we try to call this, now you can see that we are getting our IP, our location data, and as well as the data that we're receiving from geolocation IP. In this case, we are just calling this API, but we are not leaking our API key. Here we are getting the response as internal server error because we are executing the code directly from here, so we are getting the problem. Let me just change my IP to something else. Now if I refresh, you'll find that my IP also got changed and it's working for different IPs also. So in this case, you have just got the basic idea how to create your Lambda function. Now let's learn about the cleanup. Like AWS Lambda functions are free, but if you don't need this Lambda function, after your testing is done, you can simply delete this function. For this, first, you should be deleting the configuration permission first. Like inside your configuration permission, here you have the IAM role, this one. First, we need to delete this role. Just copy the role name, paste it here, and it will be deleted. And now we don't have any role for this Lambda function. Now, we should be deleting inside action. Here, just click on delete function, and this function will be deleted. Now if we try to refresh this, like here you are getting messages forbidden because our function has deleted and this URL has no value now. Now we don't have any function. In this way we can use AWS Lambda function. Now I hope that you have got the idea about how to use AWS Lambda function